see there's a pattern here. Log base 10 of this. It's like, no, I can't plug in -3 because 10 raised to what is 0 never happens, right? So that's my vertical asymptote. Um, so that is y equals -3. So 1, 2, 3. So it's never going to cross that line. Then I know that 10 raised to 0 is 1. So if I think about the log, it'd be log base 10 of 1 would equal 0, right? So how can I make that 1? Well, that would be a -2. So -2, I would get log base 2 of 1, which equals 0. So that would be 0 times 2 is still 0, and then subtract 1. And I'd get -1. So if I plug in -2, I get -1. So I have that point, and then I just need a second point. So this one is when I know I have log base 10 of 10, I know that answer is 1, correct? And then 1 times 2 would be 2, and then 2 minus 1 would be a positive 1, right? So what gets me to 10 here? Well, that is a positive 7, right? So if I go over 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I know I'm going to get 1 out, and then I can make my graph like that. So this usually always happens. It's some number times the log with whatever base and x minus h, and then add c at the end. And so I can always find my vertical asymptote by just setting this equal to 0, and that's just going to be y equals h. But because of that negative in there, sometimes it confuses students because that would be -3, right? What makes that 0 is -3. And so we will always sometimes think of this not as the same number, it's always the opposite. So sometimes they say it's -h, but it's whatever makes that 0, right? So if you want to think about it as h or -h, I don't care. Then the next one is what gets me to a positive 1 here, right? So what makes that equal 1, right? So that could be, technically it would be just your x value would just be 1 plus h, okay? But h is a negative, so it might be easier to think about it as 1 minus h, okay? And then your y value, because that's going to turn into 0 here, then 0 times a is still going to be 0, and then add c, so it's always going to be this 1 minus h c. And then lastly, we want this to be the same as the base, so that'd be b plus h. B plus h, but again, sometimes because of that negative, it sounds confusing, right? Because if we plug in 3 there, 10 plus 3 would be 13, but it's actually negative, right? So sometimes it's better to just think about it as negative. So then 10 minus 3 would be 7, right? And then there we just get a, and then add c. So those would be your 2 points in your vertical asymptote. That's going to happen every time. It's just sometimes it's difficult because there's a negative h in there. It's just what makes this 0.